Yeah.
We're in episode 5 of our podcast here, and we're going to talk about the iPhone 14 repairability and maybe talk about some other big news-worthy events in September here.
Yep. So, first, episode 5. Again, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music as well. You can watch us on YouTube. Yeah, big December, or not December, September. It was a very newsworthy September. I don't know where I am right now, Brandon. I have,
The
so
Mariners,
you
right?
see me Mariners tonight, clinch the playoff, first time in 21 years. I don't know where I am. We're some sort of alternate universe. So
Yeah.
if I mess up
Okay.
this episode with all the information that I'm about to spew out, blame the Mariners for going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we were going to talk about is iPhone 14. So Apple did their big announcement with the new iPhones coming out. They also have the iWatch coming out and the new AirPods coming out. Brandon, did you watch the Apple announcement at all?
I didn't watch the announcement, no.
Okay. So to sum it up, I thought it was really underwhelming, to be honest with you. Usually they're pretty flashy with everything that they do. Um, this announcement, the keynote was oddly very safety focused. So they have some cool features coming out when it comes to safety. So their phones, the iPhone 14s, can connect to satellite. So if you're out on a hike and get lost, and you don't have cell signal, you can connect to a satellite and make a call via a satellite feed. There's also crash detection. So if you're in a car and you get into a crash, your phone will know. And iWatches can do this now too, which is so. I don't want to say that this information isn't, or this new technology isn't cool, but the theme that Apple really had for this announcement was buy an iPhone or you're gonna die.
It's a scary world out there, so
So
this is what.
so yeah, it's so don't worry. I got my iPhone,
Okay.
not a 14 though. No crash detection, but in the repair world, there was some really interesting things that came out regarding specifically not the iPhone 14 Pro series, but just the iPhone 14 and the 14 Plus. So if you go onto iFixit, they did a teardown. A lot of people did teardowns. I think my favorite one was done by Hugh somebody. Anyway, it's I say that like he's a not big YouTuber, but he's a lot bigger than we are. But anyway, he did a great teardown where he tore down both he tore down the iPhone 14, two of them, and then he swapped the logic boards from them over to see how repairable these things actually were, and if you're going to get issues by swapping OEM parts with each other. And it turns out that yes, that is a problem. But before we get into the problems, the iPhone 14 is actually easier to repair than a lot of the other iPhones out there. So getting the screen off is really easy. You pop the screen off, and you see two flex connectors. You pop those off. You put the new screen back on. It's really fast. It actually reminds me a lot of Pixel 2, Pixel 2 XL. But the big change is through the front. You see like a mid frame when you pop that screen off. You don't actually have access to like the battery connectors or the camera connectors unless you flip it over and take the rear off. Now that's totally new. We haven't seen that in iPhones at all. So you can actually easily replace the rear glass on an iPhone 14, which is I think pretty cool, and it looks very repairable. In fact, iFixit gave it a 7 out of 10 for repairability. No, we'll talk more on that.
Overall? Or the back?
Overall, so no, just overall the phone. but when you look at it and you watch the videos on teardowns, um, the iPhone 14 is extremely modular. Um, and so replacing parts is easy. There's still lots of screws, so screw management is still important, but it's incredibly modular. And fixing a screen has really never been easier. But there's a big caveat to that, and it's the fact that Apple still serializes their parts. And so, if you try to if you buy an iPhone 14, for example, you break the screen, and you have another iPhone 14, and you take the screen off of that and put it on your iPhone 14, the screen will still turn on, but you lose functionality with certain features. So you might have front camera issues, no Face ID, no True Tone, auto brightness goes away.
Certain features.
Certain features, right? Uh, if you have like cameras and you try to swap the cameras aren't going to function properly. Um, it's kind of a big deal. And again, this is with an OEM part. This isn't with aftermarket parts, so we don't know what the aftermarket world's going to look like for parts. Um, so if you want to do these repairs, you have to go through the Apple route right now and go through their repair program, which we talked about at length in episode 1, I believe, where we talked about how ridiculous the Apple Repair Do-It-Yourself program is. But Apple's kind of forcing people to go through that, or go to an Apple store and get it fixed there. But everything is serialized, so you're forced to go to Apple, have them run system config, which is AST2 in the tech world, if you know anything about that. But that serializes the parts, so everything works together and everything's copacetic, and then everything works after that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about iFixit and their score, the repairability score, because we've talked at length about Apple and kind of saying that they're pro repair without actually being pro repair, especially right to repair, right? This isn't Apple's not doing anything new here, except tease that the fact that their non-repairable phone is repairable, right?
Their most repairable phone.
Right. It's
Ever.
They made their most Apple's come out and made the most repairable non-repairable phone. But we've already kind of beaten that horse. They're not doing anything new. They're not doing it. This is Apple being Apple. But I did want to touch on iFixit and their 7 out of 10 repairability score. So I'm a fan of iFixit. Their repair guides, I think, are very good.
Yeah.
Their toolkits are great. I have 2 myself.
Me too.
And iFixit has been very pro right to repair, so I don't want to poop on iFixit like their entire thing. I am going to disagree with that 7 out of 10 score, though. So I get from a physical repair side only that they would call this phone a 7 out of 10 when it comes to repairability. The problem that I have is Apple forces you to do the software side to get the phone fully functional. And in order to do that, you have to go through Apple channels. And so in that sense, it's a 2 out of 10, right, for repairability. So if you take the physical side with the software side and match those scores together, really iFixit should have probably scored repairability like a 3. Because the do-it-yourself program isn't worth it. It's not a good deal for the consumers unless you are Alaska guy,
Alaska man.
Alaska man or woman.
This is for you.
Look, Alaska person on your boat with, you can't get to an Apple store because you're fishing, right? This repair program is for you. But if you're not, then you're looking at going to an authorized repair place, which there aren't many, or going to an Apple store to get your phone fixed. And so Apple is still controlling everything about that repair. So I I think that they need to reevaluate the grading system when it comes to repairability, because I think that 7 out of 10 can be misleading if I'm looking, if I don't know about AST2 and Apple and whatnot, and I go out and I see the guide and I'm like, cool, it's a
All
7 out of 10 for repair. I could do it myself, and then I go and I get a screen not
Nothing
knowing that,
works.
right? And the first thing I do is I turn the thing on, and it's like, and you literally, it just like ding 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 ding, all errors, right? Uh, Cannot confirm, screen is legit. Face ID doesn't work. Right? You did
True
everything
tone.
right, right? True Tone isn't working. It doesn't. I have to manually adjust the brightness on the screen now. Um, that to me, when you have all those issues, is not a 7 out of 10. So this is me being nitpicky. I'm being nitpicking and throwing a good company under the bus right now. But yeah, I think they need to reevaluate that, because at the same time, you go and you see like a Samsung S10 is like a 3 out of 10 for repairability according to iFixit, and I think the S10 is one of the easiest and fastest repairs that does not require any kind of software or anything.
And by
You
the way, you
just
can get a super cheap aftermarket part for us.
super right, super cheap aftermarket part.
And it works fine.
Um, yeah, it works. It works fine. There's not most of the components that you would think you'd have to transfer over to the new device are located on the main board, and so the main PBA is the Samsung term. But it's very little as far as components that need to be transferred over to the new thing. Um, but that scored like a 3 or a 4 out of 10, and I'm like, no, that's a 6 or a 7.
It's my bread and butter.
Right, right. And like I could fix an S10,
10 minutes
10 minutes.
without, yeah,
Yeah. Maybe 15 if you include
diagnostics and
heating
such.
time.
Oh, heating, yeah, yeah.
Right, heating up the device, right? So, um, yeah, I think iFixit should reevaluate um, their score and their grading system, right? Um, that's just my advice to iFixit. Outside of that, though, iFixit guys. So in the future, if someone, because we only have like 2 viewers on this channel, um,
Talking to you guys.
actually, in Spotify it's like 12, but
Okay. Yes.
but yeah, iFixit. Love a lot of what you're doing, but your grading system, I think, needs to be adjusted. Anyway. Did you have any thoughts on the iPhone 14 at all?
No, I think we're gonna get to this next, but it's the battery isolation is kind of, we can only speculate on this, but it's really interesting because what we found is that in past, what's the first thing you do when you do an iPhone repair? Well, any repair, you want to battery isolate. So you
Yeah.
want to unplug the battery, do a power flush. In the iPhone 14, it's not like previous repairs where first thing you do is you see a battery flex and disconnect it. It's not accessible from the screen. So so what you have to do is either disconnect it, either disconnect the screen before the battery, or you have to open up the back to get to that battery. So it's kind of interesting.
So it's a bit bizarre. So I remember when I first got into the business, into cell phones specifically back in 2018. I was told, and I saw it happen too. You want to disconnect that battery, right? You don't want any kind of power going to any of the components, especially while things are being plugged in or unplugged, because you could be sending power to or from something that shouldn't. And so on the 6s and 7s specifically, I'm talking about the iPhone 6s and 7s. It was I don't want to say it was like super common, but it's certainly a thing that if you left the battery plugged in, you could blow the backlight controller. And so you'd do a screen replacement, turn on the iPhone, and like half the screen would be dark, or
Which
the
is why
whole screen would be
iPad
dark.
Pro repairs can be a problem. So
Right. And so the backlight controller wasn't part of the screen assembly. It was a component that was on the main board. So with this iPhone 14, I'm curious about that, right? Because this really easy look and repair all of a sudden is complicated if you're having to remove the back first to isolate the battery, flip it over and then replace the screen.
And so it looks like on iFixit's guide, at least, they don't have you do that. They just don't. They just leave it out.
So it looks like it's designed that you just do like you basically hot swap the screens, right? Like you would on a Pixel.
Yeah, that's a good example you bring up. Is the Pixel 6, and so and that leads me to wonder on the Pixel 6, from my experience, not every time, but I have technicians calling me all the time saying, oh, I've done this repair, it's not displaying. And from experience, I know that it's because what needs to be done is just a simple power flush. And so you disconnect the battery, power flush it, and displays again. So I wonder if we're going to run into those things for the iPhone 14.
So that is probably good advice for anyone who listens to this or watches this in the future. If you're doing an iPhone 14 screen repair, and the screen doesn't turn on right away,
we'll see
the new screen.
Yeah. Might need to take off the back, maybe.
You might, either attempt a hard reboot, or disconnect the battery and reconnect it. This also makes me think that maybe they moved the backlight controller to the screen assembly, right? Which is a possibility. I don't know, but like that was like my first reaction to watching the teardown video, when I saw them pop off the screen, was I saw that mid frame and I was like, holy crap, that looks like a Pixel. And I was like, where's the battery connector? Like, it's on the. You have to flip the phone over, and it's on the other side. It looks remarkably like a Pixel.
Well, the Pixel, you do the mid-frame,
Apple
right?
is a what?
You go through the mid-frame on the 6, right?
So yeah, you go through the mid-frame,
right?
So it's different in that respect. But yeah, if Google decided for their Pixels that they wanted an Apple engineer to design it, like that's but yeah, it really does. It almost looks like a Google person came over to Apple and designed the iPhone 14.
It could be.
The difference though is the iPhone 14 still looks like Apple modular, like everything looks and is laid out like it makes sense, unlike a Pixel device where it's just a mess once you get past that mid.
It looks nicer actually in the 14. You were mentioning, right, that it's it looks like it's all right there.
Yeah. So
one bracket.
Just one, yeah. I think that's all that I got from Pixel 14.
Right.
Are you looking something up?
Yeah, no, that's it. I think for the 14, it's we were talking about news though, and we definitely we have some more news we want to talk about.
Yep, more news. So away from Apple, but a good segue into this next topic. So earlier this week, I think on Monday, Mobilesentrix announced that they are acquiring Mobile Defender. So for anyone who doesn't know anything about those two companies, those are two big companies in the third-party repair world for cell phones. Big ones. And it's interesting what this means for third-party repair going forward. So Mobilesentrix is a pretty big company. I've toured their their facility before. I've met their owners on a couple of occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Sod and Wakas, great guys, super smart guys. Um, they have really focused on quality aftermarket parts at reasonable prices with great warranties. That's
Geez, yeah.
and and they've done a great job at at the customer service side. So their relationships with the third party network is top notch. It's
Yeah.
excellent. They have great relationships with, your small mom and pop shops to, the Ubrick iFix / Assurions of the world. At Summit last year, they were one of the vendors that came out for that. So they're a big deal in this world. Mobile Defenders isn't as big, but and they hammered on this really hard during their announcement. Mobile Defenders is a big OEM part supplier. They have really good relationships with major OEMs. So we're talking OnePlus, we're talking I
Motorola,
believe
right?
so Motorola. They have some sort of relationship with Apple. They have some sort of relationship with Samsung as well. Basically, if all the big players, including Huawei, I think. Anyway, but all the big manufacturers, Mobile Defenders has an in with them in one way or another. So this is really curious. As we have, we talked about Apple, we talked about OEM parts, and if you're not using, their system configurator, you're going to lose features, right? Even with OEM parts, let alone aftermarket parts. So I'm curious about this Mobilesentrix Mobile Defenders combining. Um, is is Mobilesentrix kind of reading the writing on the wall right now, and they're saying, you know what, we need access to OEM parts um, because aftermarket parts just aren't going to exist for Apple products, or are they thinking that other manufacturers are going to follow Apple and start serializing parts and making it so you can't use any kind of aftermarket part on your Samsung or on your OnePlus or Google device? And are, so I it's very interesting. I don't know if this. I'm trying to think of how this looks and whether or not all of a sudden, right to repair is going to go through, and what is this saying about right to repair in the movement? Are we gaining ground? Are we losing ground? Because both companies are ran by really smart people,
Yep.
right? Some of the smartest people I've ever met. Um, what what is the 5 and 10 year plan here, right? What are they? I would love to have a conversation with them. I'd love to get them. Let's get this channel big enough and try to attract Assad or Wakas onto the
Well,
channel to have this kind of conversation with them. I want to see what they see the next 5 to 10 years is going to look like in the aftermarket world and
yeah.
third party repair in general. What are they seeing? Um, because this I understand how this acquisition benefits both companies, right? You take the giant third party network that and that relationship that Mobilesentrix has built with the customer service that they have and the relationships that they have with third party, and now you add in OEM parts and that relationship that Mobile Defenders has with OEM, right? That totally makes sense. So there's a lot of that makes sense, that they're merging the best of what both companies do together. Um, so I get why both companies would want to do this and how they're going to benefit from it. Um, but what that means for third party repair going forward, and what that's going to look like, and how it's going to impact consumers later with pricing, and I don't know. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
curious. I don't
speculation.
know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's all speculative, but it's a little
Yeah.
frightening.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It if you're looking to get into this business as a owner of your own mom and pop shop, it's kind of scary because I watch like Lewis Rossman, and I follow Right to Repair, and a lot of times it looks like we're making headway with Right to Repair, but then I see deals like this and look at what Apple's doing with the iPhone 14, and I'm just like, my head just goes swimming, and yeah, it makes me paranoid.
Yep.
Yeah. Um. Anyway, so the last thing that we have is um, not cell phone related at all, but it's still big news in the tech world. Um, it kind of impacts me because I've said before that I used to work on I still work on computers, but have a big background in building and repairing computers. So this is computer news, and I just wanted to I guess voice my opinion on it because it's a big topic the last week or so. So Nvidia has had a big month. Um, they they announced the 4000 series GPUs, and then shortly after that, um, one of their major partners broke up with them, in in interesting fashion, um, like an ex posting a really nasty Facebook post. uh, so uh, so Nvidia launches the 4000 series. Everything looks really cool as far as the performance levels and whatnot. I'm interested to seeing what the actual performance difference is going to be between the real world numbers. I don't have any of that information here. Um, they announced three cards: a 4090, a 4080, um, and then another 4080 that isn't a 4080. It's more like a 4070. But their marketing team is trying to sneak things past people. um, I'm skipping the 4000 series, by the way. I have a 3080 Ti in my build right now, and the next build that I do is going to be a full build, and it's going to have we're in a generational shift right now. Um, so for CPUs and everything, and these 4000 series GPUs are so power hungry that you need to upgrade power supplies and get special power supplies for them. Um, but anyway, I digress. The other big news from Nvidia is they broke up with EVGA, which is a major graphics card maker. At least they used to be. Not anymore. They've dropped GPU making completely. But one of the reasons that they invited all the big media people to like this kind of closeted press conference kind of thing. A lot of YouTube personalities. I didn't get the invite. Don't know why. Probably because we have two viewers. But
12 on Spotify.
12 on Spotify. I don't know what EVH doing not inviting me, or us. Um, but so EVGA comes out, and not only do they say that, hey, um, we're dropping GPUs, they specified a lack of respect. And apparently that's like a verbatim lack of respect from Nvidia. This is not the first time that we've heard that Nvidia is kind of a crazy partner to work with. that's been kind of in the industry. That's like a worst kept secret. But that's a very public thing to come out and say to a bunch of media people, is that, we feel disrespected by Nvidia, so screw it. We're not going to make graphics cards anymore, even though graphics cards are 80% of our total revenue as a company. 80%. They're dropping them like a bad habit. uh, and that's crazy news. And the kind of the reason why I bring this up in relation to everything else that we talked about is I really feel like Nvidia is trying to be the next Apple. So they're a kind of a control freak company. I remember when I worked for Best Buy, and over a decade ago, when Best Buy first started selling Apple products, it was a big deal. But Apple maintained control, and they were very in control of how their products were even presented in stores, right? To the point where, your MacBooks could not sit on the same shelf as a Dell, a lowly Dell, right? A lowly Toshiba, a lowly HP. They were not going to have that. No. We had to have a special table with a special presentation for specifically Apple products, MacBooks and iPads. Even the accessories had like their own special section. You couldn't put Apple adapters, like DVI adapters mixed in with PC DVI adapters, even though they're basically the same thing. You had to separate Apple. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not going to poop on Apple for that. Because they're very much about brand recognition and image, and that's okay. If you feel like you're selling a premium product, that's fine. There's, I would imagine that, Lamborghini is not going to sell out of the same dealership as Ford. Right? Even if a Ford dealership owner has a bunch of money and they want to add Lamborghinis to their lot, like Lamborghini's not going to do that. That's okay. That's okay. I want the GK brand, it's something that we own, to look good. And there are plenty of companies that I wouldn't want GK associated with, right?
Fair enough.
So I understand the importance of brand image, but I bring that up because Apple would send people, so everything had to be different about Apple. Even they wanted us to have specialized salespeople, and they could not wear Best Buy clothing or name badges. They had a specific attire that they were supposed to wear with a Apple, with a name badge that was like Apple specialist, and it didn't say Best Buy on it, right? So so it was funny that Apple thought so much of Best Buy that they wanted really nothing to do with Best Buy image around their products, even though people had to come into Best Buy to see it. It was a bit bizarre, but I bring this up because Apple also kind of notoriously has been at times a difficult partner to work with. Now you can make relationships like that work. I know Best Buy has. Best Buy still sells Apple products. What I'm getting at though with Nvidia is not Apple. They're not. And they don't have that same reputation as Apple does. Their products aren't they aren't flashy like an Apple product is. And I'm not saying Apple is offering necessarily like better products. That has nothing to do with that. I'm just talking about image and reputation right now. And it really seems like Nvidia is doing a really good job at burning bridges in a way that maybe they can't afford compared to like Apple probably could. You probably don't have an opinion because you don't follow any of that stuff.
No, but it's very interesting.
I wanted to bring it up and kind of spill and give my opinion on it, just because I thought it was so bizarre that the EVGA would come out and totally take a dump on Nvidia completely. Like I said, like an ex blasting someone on Facebook. It was you don't usually see that from a company, right? Even as companies separate and terminate partnerships, usually in a press release, they're just like, "Oh, we're going to go focus on something else," right? GPUs, aren't they're 80% of our revenue, but they're only 1% of our profit margin, and we're going to go do something else. And good luck to Nvidia. But they didn't do that at all. They're just like, Nvidia sucks, and we feel disrespected. We hate that they're undercutting our pricing on stuff, forcing us to follow certain pricings, and for launches, we're getting information. We're trying to build their graphics cards for them, and and media guys are getting information before we are. And how can we build something when Joe Schmo YouTuber has more information on my product than or on Nvidia's product than we do? There was a case where Nvidia had sent out their Founders Edition cards to certain media personalities, and gave them of course a driver to use for their graphics cards, but they weren't giving drivers to the makers of their cards, right? The AIVs out there, and so you had EVGAs and MSIs potentially reaching out to your YouTubers to see if they could get a driver so they could build cards for Nvidia to sell, right? It's totally just very bizarre relationship that Nvidia has with its partners. I have an Nvidia card in my system right now, just like I have an iPhone right now, and I think that they make really good products. But man, it almost pains me to buy these products because of some of the decision making that goes up top. It kind of makes me sick to my stomach. So, yeah, I hope you got a kick out of that, Brandon.
Yeah,
I hope,
for sure. It's a
yeah,
good analogy.
yeah.
I like a good allegory of two stories. So
yeah, so. But you got anything else to add? Any newsworthy things that you want to share? Or?
that's it for today. But
Perfect.
this has been great. We appreciate you guys watching. Would love any interaction, any comments or likes. Appreciate that. And
Yep.
let us know if you want us to put something out there particular.
Yep. And again, watch us on YouTube. You can watch us on Spotify or listen to us on Spotify. Or you can listen to us on Apple Music. Apple Podcasts or Amazon. Brandon. I don't know where I am. Mariners are in the playoffs. Let's go. Go Mariners. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.